our first official HaunTED talk. And this is, thank you. So the idea here is, this is in 2 parts, and we're going to talk about all the various stuff that I've done over the years with various talking and moving skulls. So part 1 is going to be about making it talk, which has turned out to be a multi-year obsession. Because this started before you could go into the drugstore and buy a little talking thing off the shelf. Now it's common, and so it's, but there's still things you can do with it. And then the second part will be about making it move. So, let me show you what we're going for, and then how we got there. So this is a little clip from Chimeric Enterprises this year.
Now his body is in a locked-in coma. He can't actually move, but we've hooked his brain up to the internet because his brain is still awake and aware, and he's still running the lab virtually. So I'm going to let Bob describe our new products. So go ahead and take it away, Bob.
Hello. I'm proud to present our new, better controlled transgenics. We had problems controlling violent outbursts from some of our wolf super soldiers and other wolf human hybrids.
So this is Bob. This is where the evolution of Bob, where he went from just a talking skull on the shelf to being a major character in the haunt. And so that made a big difference in terms of how he was presented and how he was received. But let's talk about how we got there. If you haven't been in this for a long time, this all started with a guy named Scary Terry. This is his website.
Still.
It hasn't changed in years. Terry looks a little different.
Oh, he's the one on the left.
Exactly. And I mean, I think he hasn't updated this since 2019. I mean, that's what it says at the bottom. And so, Scary Terry had what he called the audio servo driver circuit, which got turned into a commercial board that I got here. And there was also installing a servo in a Bucky skull. Now, those of you who have been more experienced know what a Bucky skull is, but if you're still new to this, we'll go over that. Why was it a Bucky skull? Well, for a long time, the only skulls that you could get easily and cheaply, they were like this.
Oh, that's a Blucky.
Yes, that's a Blucky.
Lucky. They were sort of cheap blow mold things, and the attention to detail was great. The other thing about those skulls is I just got this picture this week off of eBay where this guy wants $29.95 plus $18 in shipping for this.
Can't find them, so it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
collector's item.
yeah, oh my God. And you know, if you look here, you see
Oh, but
the
it's
little,
2.
You see the VTG? Vintage. Yeah,
So if
so,
you want to do an alien skull.
yeah, that wasn't bad for an alien autopsy, but that would be about it. So anyway, a real Bucky skeleton is an actual medical training device. And so you can see that from this website, you can see medical education, nursing education, so and so. And when they make these things, they're real heavy duty, and they're meant to copy the look and feel of a real skeleton. And so you can see that this is a 4th quality, which means that there are errors in the molding, so that they don't want to sell this for actual medical stuff. So it's only $200. Which is a lot. It's pretty good. But, you know, the other issue with these is that it's 36 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
the whole skull.
yeah, that's a whole skeleton, not just the skull, but it's a lot. It's a lot. So,
We have one of those, and you know where I put it? It fell apart, for starters. It's out in our cactus garden.
Oh.
I think it's too heavy to use.
Too heavy.
yeah, actually, and then when Leo's giveaway was happening a few months ago, there were these Bucky things, nobody would take them because they're so heavy, you know?
Yeah.
Now that you can go to the store and get really nice, lightweight things, this is what you want to use. But let's take a look at Bob. So how I got him, when I first joined this
Oh,
group,
yeah.
was back when it was still Cal Haunts, as opposed to Norcal Haunters. And the Cal Haunts started off as Cal Haunts in Southern California, and then there was a Yahoo group, and somebody up here picked up the name, and then at some point, there was some drama with the Southern California group, and we didn't want to be associated with them anymore, and so we broke off and became our own identity. But there was a guy moving from this area down, and he just gave away all of his stuff. So that's how I ended up with Bob here. it's actually a Cowlacious Designs kit based on the Scary Terry thing. And what Scary Terry's circuit, you originally would have built this by hand on a proto board, but Cowlacious is a little hobby electronics company and they sell this. But what it does is it just listens for the volume of the sound that's being played through it, and it moves the servo. And so if it hears volume for a certain amount of time, it opens up the jaw, and if that cuts off, so you get a talking effect, and it can work. It can work, but it's it's early and there's no microprocessor here. It's all done through basically analog circuitry. But 10 years ago, this was great. And so this is Cowlacious Designs webpage from just the other day. They sell a Bucky skull with all the stuff. It's hard to see, but $124 or $97 for this. It's expensive, it's old tech, and it's heavy.
And it's just the jaw.
And it's just the jaw moving.
Yeah, and it's just, you're right, and it's just the jaw moving. And no, these things are really too heavy.
Yeah.
This one here, so this is Bob from the presentation. If I take away this, you can see that Bob, with the PVC stand, you need a PVC stand to keep him from tipping over. This is about 4.6 pounds. And it's still sort of top heavy. And if you were to come up with this and look at it carefully later, the guy who originally had it, this must have been up on something high and it fell because it's cracked here and there, but it doesn't really matter.
It's Halloween.
So he's top heavy, and the other thing about this is if I turn this on, because of the way this is, the servo in it is kind of loud. You have a heavy skull that needs a big servo on the inside to move a heavy jaw.
I don't remember how much it is.
Hello, I'm proud to present our new Better Control.
So if I flip this off, you can kind of hear that. You can hear this. And in a quiet environment, when we originally had this set up, we were in a carport. This was the only thing. There was a lot of extra noise. You could hear this. So that's why he's a cyborg. Oh, well, you've got a servo sound. And that fits into our mad scientist theme anyway. But that was the adaptation that we did there. The point is that when I first got into this, the Bucky was the thing, but now you can get good lightweight skulls all over the place. So I wouldn't recommend doing that again, because it's heavy, it's more likely to tip over, you need a more powerful servo. The more powerful servo is going to be loud.
And it's still tipped forward. I mean.
Oh yeah, because this is so heavy, it's kind of hard to keep them upright.
Yeah.
If you come up, you can see the tape and the zip
Yeah, we kept
ties,
trying,
and
but-
we have to keep messing with it each year. So but that's where all of this started with Scary Terry and the Buckies. If you're not familiar with this sort of thing, how does the jaw move? So it uses a servo, and the servo is just a small electric motor that has gears inside it that increase the torque, and they come in big and little sizes. And so these little blue ones are the cheapest ones available. And if you were to look closely at one of these, you haven't seen it, you have a tiny, tiny little motor and a little circuit board and little teeny plastic gears.
Easy
The
to throw.
key thing is that, you don't want to use this for anything that has any weight. And even this is one of the next size up. The next one, so these, if you buy them in quantity, are about $1, $1.50. The next size up is, the next size up is like $4 or $5 maybe, depending where you get them. Each of these, you can get servos in these sizes that are much stronger, that will cost you more. And if you're going to do anything significant or you want anything longer lasting, you want to spend more money. So,
Investment.
and they're, they are, and it just won't die on you. These things are used in radio-controlled cars and planes most of the time, and it does need some kind of special circuit to control it. It's part of a system. So, once you have that system, and the thing that's interesting is, the key thing with just a talking skull is getting the lip sync of the movement down. And
Lip syncing.
the lip syncing and so on. So
They have lips?
That was sort of my point, but-
Mandible sinking.
Jaw sinking.
jaw syncing, okay. Fair enough. Well, actually, you know, people can dress these things up and put like rubbery masks and things on them.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a bear skull, so, you know. But the main thing here is that you have to think about this as a character in your show. And so you have to think of, you know, what's it going to do and how's it going to do it. Animating the skull is tedious because you have the soundtrack and you want the jaw to move at a certain thing, but it's essentially a digital puppet. There have been a lot, because it's tedious, there have been a lot of people who've come out with something that says, you don't need to do any programming or hand animation yourself. You just plug the sound file in and this will take care of all of it. Right. Well, none of these automatic things are perfect. Here's an example. This is one that I got off someone's webpage. He's got a skull, and what you'll see is that this was designed so that it had random movement, so that you just played a sound file and the skull is going to look around and so on, so that this way you don't have to perform anything, you just say go. It's randomly picking that movement over and over again a couple times.
Yeah, but that is annoying, actually.
Avast, ye lovers! Welcome to the Red Raven Inn. I be the proprietor of this here establishment. They call me Big Red.
So, you know, for a character that is supposed to be a pirate and performing, I don't really necessarily buy that. You know, you'd be better off learning to puppeteer the thing and having it somehow. My advice here is you want to take the time to animate the character that the thing is, when I saw the automatic Banshee boards and everything, you end up with that movement where the character kind of looks like he's high. I don't know what else to say. Welcome, foolish mortals, to the, it just doesn't.
Well, that's what I mean. They have a random movement, but it makes no sense. He's not responding to anything
It's
in
not
the environment.
performing. You've got an actor in the show, and he's high. That's basically.
Maybe he's a drunk pirate.
Yeah, but you didn't write drunk dialogue for him, you know. So what I ended up with was is I started with the Scary Terry thing. I wasn't that happy with it. There was something that Hall staff put out in a small quantity before he put out the later set of boards. I had one of those. It works, but you can't get it anymore. And so a few years later, in 2016, came this thing called the Jawduino, which uses the Arduino, and it's inexpensive, and that's a picture of his webpage there. And you can see there, at the time, he said this cost him about $20. Well, time has gone by, so these days an Arduino call is $250, an MP3 player is $250, and the audio decoder that is part of it is $2. And so what he does on this is, originally it was just an Arduino with this little audio decoder, and so the Scary Terry circuit and the later ones would just listen to the volume. The audio decoder is actually breaking the sound apart into multiple channels, and those for low, medium, and high. And so then you have 3 different levels of the sound, and then based on that, your jaw is closed, open a little bit more, open a lot. And this is inexpensive to get one of these little boards, and if you animate it right, the effects are really good. Well, that's how we're doing Bob here, you know, and it's good enough. I mean, there's a point at which I've taken the trouble to animate it, and it works. So, so those are the 3 jaw servo positions. The original Jawduino just listened to whatever sounds you played and animated the jaw. I updated the software, so if you've got an Arduino, you have an MP3 player, the Arduino says play a sound file. The MP3 player takes care of that, and then the Arduino listens to it and animates the thing, so it becomes sort of an all-in-one thing. At one point, Susie and I did a thing at the California Academy of Sciences. I did a version of it, and I got an article on it published in Servo Magazine back in 2017. Yeah.
It's a paper magazine.
I know. These guys are out of business. But there's Servo Magazine, and there was also Nuts and Bolts. So anyway, this article, PDF of my article here is on the website, has been for a while. But basically, what we did is I took the Jawduino and I adapted it to a line greeter thing. So it was on a timer and had about 6 phrases. And so Bob would sit there and talk at people waiting in line. That was pretty successful. It was a fun background thing, but he hadn't yet progressed to the character that we turned him into later. That was Susie's idea. Let's have the body sitting there and the head on the body talking to you. Then he's telling
It was
everybody
from
the
William
story.
Gibson, actually.
Yeah, the original idea was based on one of the sections in the Neuromancer books, and that worked out really well. So what's interesting is, you have something like this. How do you tune the animation so that you're not dealing on just the circuit on the board? So this video was put together to show you, this is a short section of it, how to tune the animations for the Scary Terry board, but it'll get you the idea.
Proceed with caution down the candlelit hallway.
You see how that's like,
I
doesn't
really
match
just wanted
that
to be able
well?
to tell the servo, open the jaw and close the jaw. So this is what I came up with. I made a 2-second sound file of a 12 kilohertz sine wave at pretty high volume. 12 kilohertz is pretty high, and my props speakers cannot reproduce it at all. However, the Scary Terry board sees it and reacts quite well. So here's how I do it. I mix the sound in with whatever the dialogue is, and it'll just drive the circuit perfectly. I start off with a little piece of the sine till it looks like the jaw is opening at the right spots.
I just jumped ahead.
Proceed with
Then I'll go back in and change the length of the files
Oh, yeah.
to match the length of the words.
Proceed with caution down the candlelit.
So you get the idea,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You tweak it. Now the difference here is that was for the Scary Terry board. The Jawduino, because it's using the little
The candlelit hallway.
the Jawduino, because of it's got an audio amplifier. You don't need to do as much tweaking there. You basically run the sound and you say, oh, this phrase needs a little more and this phrase needs a little. So he was putting it everywhere in there, and I used to have to do that. But now I put like 3 or 4 of those in a sentence and it works fine. So yeah. So the other thing, of course, is. The other way of interpreting this is a lot of time and money on this, and you people are going to watch this for as long ago. You don't know how hard that's wrong.
That's understandable.
Less is more. This is my advice from having done this a lot. And you have a short speech and take the time to animate it well. So it is tedious to go through and put those extra little beeps in there. And the one thing that's going on with the Jawduino that's different than the Scary Terry board is I split the sound so that one sound goes out of the speaker and the other sound just goes into the Jawduino. And so the left track, for example, is the speaker and the right track has the extra beeps. And so if I was to swap those, you'd hear the same dialogue with beep, 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 beep every now and then. And that's how you get a pretty nice effect. And again, it's inexpensive. Where I'm planning on going on all of this is, right now, if you look at this, this is still sort of like a hobby thing that's been put together. This is, unplug this.
Speaking of, yeah.
So this is a setup, we have, one more thing to unplug, there. This is just an Arduino with connectors and stuff is hot glued to this board. This works, but it's big and it's a little awkward and you have wires hanging off. So the idea is that I'm going to design a printed circuit board. I will include everything on the single circuit board so it will come off looking a lot more like one of these professionally done ones. It will support a motion sensor. So just like we had that talk a meeting or two ago about motion sensors and how you trigger them off, there will be a pin on there so that you can have somebody come up to your prop and trigger it and have it come to life. And Adrian kindly disassembled and figured out how the talking pumpkin LEDs work. You saw that thing online. And so it's the same idea. Instead of a servo doing this, the talking pumpkin has a closed mouth, an open mouth, and a wide open mouth. That's 3 different settings of LEDs. So there will eventually be 2 versions of the software, one that handles a servo and one that handles the talking pumpkin. It'll be the same board, you plug different things into it and tweak it. So, and because the whole thing with the talking pumpkin stuff is you don't have to buy one of the off-the-shelf pumpkins once we make the little thing with the shadow mask and put the LEDs
right.
in it, right? You could just get a curved piece of plastic and then dress it up as a character, and so the character would be standing there, and then it would light up, its eyes would light up, and then it would start talking at you, then it would become dark again. And so that would be a really cool effect and better than those silly things at the store that sing at you, right? So that's where I'm going with this. I've bought the components and they're sitting at home, but they're behind another project or two. You know, I just have to take the trouble to actually put it together. Now, making it move. This is the thing that is so. The Arduino's been around for a while, you know, and I've done it, and it's sort of locked down. But there's the updates. Now we're going to be making it move. Here is again the end result. This is from Eric's haunt, and he wanted a prisoner. He just has a static thing here, and he wanted the prisoner every now and then to look around. And so that was very effective. It was this little subtle background thing, and people would go and because if you've been through or seen the videos of Eric's stuff, he has a very sort of calm, gentle haunt. He's not having things jumping out at people, and so he has things that are quiet. And so then the fact that one of the prisoners on the wall suddenly was moving and not totally dead was a nice effect.
Totally got me. Was not expecting it. I was like, wait, what?
Good, perfect. You know, and so this was his idea. And so, and then here's another use of it. Here we are in Chimeric Enterprises again. You'll see this character right here. This is one of the watchwords.
I realize some sentry tasks do not require the full wolf-human hybrid body. By just using the head of the hybrid, and by hooking it up to a Neuralink and an AI internet connection, they can provide 24/7 physical and web
I
security.
actually brought the prop because
These products are superior to anything Chimeric Enterprises has made before. As I'm high, we will not bow to any inferior flesh-based organisms.
That's about when things go wrong. But so Susie saw me doing this and said, "Wait, this fits into our thing perfectly." So, so why I did this is Eric asked for this way to have a prisoner look around, and I knew, after thinking about it for a very short amount of time, that this would just be what we call a pan and tilt mechanism. And it turns out that Eric asked the right guy, because I had been experimenting with pan and tilt mechanisms for months, and this is not all of them. So, what's a pan and tilt mechanism if you're not familiar? It's used for cameras. Pan is turning left and right. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. And tilt is tilting up and down. Oh good, that'll be fun to watch. And why? So the big question is, when I first got into this, it was all about a Bucky skull with a 3-axis mechanism. You know, and so, and I always looked at that, and I just didn't want to do it because 3-axis mechanism is complicated, and it's the whole thing is heavy. So you know, also, and you know, in talking this over with Ralph, who has like real experience doing this stuff,
Yeah.
you know, people just don't tip their head to the side very often like a dog. You know, and in the real movies, mostly they would use pan and tilt, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes they'll have a ball joint, so it can do any of that.
Okay.
You know, as well as have a swivel. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, that roll movement is rarer. It's the yes or no are more common.
Yeah, okay, and so that was the thing, and it's less complicated to build and animate, and the key thing here is a pan and tilt mechanism isn't inside the skull, but it's under it. And so here's a picture of one. If you look, you can see this is a big plexiglass plate with 4 servos connected to it, and then a bunch of stuff, and then this bar here goes up inside the skull. So if you imagine that this was going inside the skull, supporting 4 servos, and all that, and here's moving. Random again.
Yeah.
What's it doing? Well, it's looking around. And then this guy's going to go underneath it, and you have a bunch of servo mechanisms and cable and connectors there.
Wow.
And so, this is not a really reliable thing, you know, or easy to maintain. I mean, yeah, it works, but boy, there's a lot going on there. And so I found this guy, pair of guys, Eric and Andy, had a YouTube video. They had put a 3-axis skull together, and then they had found this newer pan and tilt thing. And so this is a little clip of that. Thank you. I didn't know that they were that loud. Now, these guys have do a good job explaining what the technology is, but again, they don't take any trouble animating it. You know, so it's like, what's he doing? Well, he's kind of looking around, like he's high. But I still, and this is also one of these YouTube videos where they set up a camera and there's a guy sitting at a workbench, and they don't have any close-ups of what's going on. And so it's like, oh, what am I looking at? Well, it turns out that the pan and tilt mechanism is from this company called Servo City. And this is it, and you know, this is from their webpage from the other day. They were $45 each.
Wow.
They're currently sold out. What you're getting is 2 servos and a little mechanism that looks like this. And so you can see that the way this had been made, because this came out in 1999, they had taken this big flat piece of plastic and laser cut it, and then you would assemble it by screwing it together. And here's what's going on, is it moves like this, so there's your tilt, and there's your pan.
Yeah,
And you see it's designed to work with cameras.
yeah.
And so that's what you're looking at there underneath the skull. So the skull sits on top of that, it goes right under the jaw, and so now the skull is just carried, you don't have this weight. So, but it's $45, and it's been a while.
It's small.
It's small, and so
Yeah.
that's why it tucks up. That's why Eric's thing and this thing, they tuck up underneath the skull really well. But when you go back to
It's $45 before you add servos, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Oh, wow. So
that's right. I forgot. Servo's not included. If you go farther down the webpage, servos and camera not included must be purchased separately.
Oh, wow.
But look at what was farther down the webpage.
Dimensions.
You guys see what I'm thinking here? I use Fusion 360, which is CAD software. So after a few hours in Fusion 360, I had my own version of it. Because if you go back and you look at this, you have all the dimensions there. And so what you do is you simply take this picture, you bring it into Fusion, you know how big the pieces are supposed to be, and you know, who thought in 1999 anybody would ever be able to do that, right? You put it up and say, this is what we're selling you. But, so now I have that, and so now it's demo time. So,
And by the way, even better, I assume you could print the pieces pre-assembled partially versus having to take
Yes.
each of the flat ones.
yeah, so it's not flat anymore. It is, so this is the mini version, so just like on Mythbusters, I did it small scale first. So this is the mini version with, so you've got the tilt here. You've got pan here, and so you can see that this upper bracket is all printed as one piece, and the lower bracket is printed as one piece. And so, and then you just need some sort of bracket for the lower servo to attach it to something. And so there you go, you got that. This is the one that we used in the video with the werewolf sentry skull on it. There. Okay, and so I've got this is just an infrared controller here, so you can see, but, so there you go. And this is just aluminum extrusion from a company that's no longer in business, but I saw at the Maker Faire. Open beam, but you can get things that are similar to this. I use this to,
And cheaper.
this turned out to work out really, really well for the look of the Mad Scientist lab. And the key thing here is making it move. When you've got something like this, I'm still looking for an easy solution for non-technical people. Programming and tuning a couple of different servos for movement is a lot of work. And there's a lot of options out there, but it's kind of in-depth. And so this is, this is not going to be a complete package that I hand you, but a bunch of ideas. The animations need a controller that actually understands how to handle servos. It doesn't have to be expensive, because an Arduino off the shelf with some accessories can handle that. But there's work involved. There's the guys that I saw at the Maker Faire bought Tango. They are from the video game business, and they understand how to animate characters in the video game business, and they have this free software where you can construct your robot and things and then animate it live. And I've downloaded it and looked at it. It's another fairly large learning curve, but it is there, it is free, it is complete. And they had this big robot at the Maker Faire that was starting to move, and so you could construct a complete thing and animate it, and they've got software that goes into the Arduino, so there's more to, so for those of you who are really interested, that's one way to go. Fright Props, on the other end of it, has what they call the Pico Servo, which is, you know, all the Fright Prop stuff are like a little self-contained box, right? So this one you plug your servos into, you click a button, it lights an LED, you turn a knob to turn the servo, you click a button, it records what you're doing, you go to the next servo, you turn the knob, it's that kind of user interface. I don't ever want to mess with that because it feels too difficult to use, but it's an option. Then there's a couple of technical companies, Pololu and Servo City, that build their more higher-end DIY stuff that know how to that have various programmable controllers. But again, you need there's a certain learning curve there. So you don't really have. There's nothing that you can get that I can find right now where you could, like, say, hook up some knobs and turn this and record those things and then play them back. It would be great if there was, yeah.
Have you looked at the Buffintronics?
No, not yet.
Okay, that is exactly what you're asking.
Okay, how much money is that?
I think the recorder board, I have to look it up, I ain't find it right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Buy it as a group
Yeah.
So my question is,
and share.
With the Fright Props Pico Servo,
Uh-huh.
can you only program one move, one of your servos at a time?
Yeah, so you click a button, you light an LED, which means I think you have 4 servos plugged into it, but you program the first one, and you turn the knob on it, and it records a sequence.
Okay.
Then you say, save that, and then you go to the next one. Well, the first servo is animating, you can
Oh,
animate
okay.
the second one.
Well, at least
Now
you
you've got
can
2
see what
servos
the
animated,
previous
so it's interesting, you know. If you've played with some of those sort of button banger things, it will work, but you know, if you screw something up, you're going to have to erase the whole thing and go back and do it again. I don't know. I'm looking at it going, oh.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, even though it's supposed to be easy.
So
So,
on the plus side, if
Yeah.
someone is not really savvy with using a computer, it's
Yes.
hands-on.
it is. So that's the
Yeah,
only
first
thing
time
that is, so it's about $65 for one of those things. So that's, you know, it would work. You know, it would take you some time to get down. Yeah, so what did you find out with this?
Yeah, so it's the second generation, so this was actually Steve Kochi's last thing he did.
Okay.
And so he did one originally, that actually I think they sold out, they did kind of a second generation of it after he died. It's $70, which basically is recorder, receiver board, so basically it connects to all the servos, and it listens to an RF joystick like you do for like a RC car or plane. So then you can say all those knobs, you can basically do that to control different axes and things like that.
Okay.
And yeah, so basically outside of the remote, the whole thing is $70 and includes the MP3 plan board, jaw sync, things like that.
So this is Steve Kochi's thing, and he's passed away, right?
Yes, but a company picked it up and basically did the second generation called Anacore.
Okay.
But
So
you have
there's-
to control over the RF.
Well, yes, that one you basically you program it that way, and it'll program it, and then it records it all, and it can replay.
It saves it on.
So there's an SD card that saves all the tracks on it.
You're not doing it live.
There's
you're recording.
You can do it live.
Yeah, true.
But you can
Either
also
way.
record it, and the primary thing is to record it multiple sequences. They could be, you can go through multiple sequences. Things like
Because another thing that's important to me and that I've been looking for is a controller board that's small, like a Pololu. It can fit in the device rather than what I use, which is a laptop, which doesn't fit really well inside.
You're going to want some little thing that you can record and that plays a sequence back. And Pololu does have these little boards that are
Maestros.
self-contained. Yeah. Again, so that's another DIY type of a thing.
These aren't super big, but I think it's about yay big.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you buy that. Now you still need a remote control RC car drive controller,
Right.
and typically those only have 2 joysticks on them. There's gas and steering.
They also sell a little kit here. Let's see if I can find it.
Right,
Basically, was one that basically had like 4 sliders, two joysticks, some buttons.
Yeah, so that you can have a more elaborate character. Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
you can tell us
Yeah,
later.
send us-
So anyway, lessons learned from making things move and so on is you want to get a lightweight skull. Kind of obvious by now.
Yeah, that was.
And there's fewer choices on that now because the classic for the lightweight skull is the Lindbergh model, and they don't make that anymore.
Oh yeah, no. That was after but Lindbergh was a model kit that you could assemble. That was
These are Lindberghs.
Oh, they are. Okay, yeah. And they're on the market for a while, and they're good looking, but they're gone now. But you know, the stuff that you find on the shelf at the drugstore looks pretty good these days, you know?
Target had
Was it
one for a
Target?
while, $5, and it was about the same scale as these skeletons. And it's got a moving jaw already.
It was super
on it.
light. It
And
was
it's super light, and it looks decent. I mean, it's not as detailed as a lot of these are texture-wise, but it looked decent enough, like, to paint it. So I
Yeah,
bought like
exactly.
a crap load of them that one year, because when we were fighting with our mariachi skeletons, we put we got the triax skull kit, so those are all the resin
Yeah.
skulls, and they're pretty heavy. Like, we had to take their whole head, the top of the head off, and
Yeah.
put the paper mache hat on because everything was too heavy
Oh, yeah.
for the
speaking
neck.
of too.
Yeah, yeah.
And when it's too heavy, and you didn't mention this, but you know, there's a little set screw in there, and that can wiggle off, and then sooner
We had
you're
exorcist
it's doing the
mariachis.
exorcist.
Three-axis skull thing?
That's a,
Yeah, see, I never mess with a three-axis skull because there's all of those components and things. And so I guess one of those comes loose, now your head is spinning around.
And what you said, I totally agree with. The tilt is
Yeah,
it's,
Yeah,
it's
for
nice
many
to have.
things. Yeah.
Nice to have.
Wall,
You don't
yeah.
really need it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, so one of the things is you need a lightweight skull. So we went down that road with this particular thing. And so this is the skull, originally the skull off of a skeleton. And in the back here, this was the
I did my
thing,
whole,
little thing that you put, you know, this went onto the top, right? So we thought, okay, this isn't too heavy. I weighed this morning, it's a little over a pound.
Okay.
yeah.
But it turns out that, so what I did is I didn't want to cut this thing off and mount this directly, so I made this little bracket. This moves the center of gravity farther up. The first time I tried using this with one of these cheap servos, it stripped it like in a second. So then it turns out, okay, fine. Little $5, $6 servos are no good. When you go and you buy servos, you can get these better ones. So these are rated at 20 kilograms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All metal gears.
All metal gears and everything. These are about $15 a piece.
Yeah.
They weren't strong enough. They could not pick it up. So well, the ones that are in here now are 35 kilograms.
Wow.
They work fine.
That was partially my fault, because this was a really lightweight skull that I then did my tap plastic werewolf
Yeah, and
thing
that
on
was
it,
heavy
and it moved
reflective.
the front also
Oh,
forward.
yeah.
Yeah.
Space
So-
saving.
Yeah, so we've got all of this extra
Yeah.
face here.
Yeah.
And so. But,
I mean, he looks great, and he wasn't too heavy as far as I was concerned. He's only a pound,
We
but
need to deform him for an extra skull in the back.
yeah,
well, but
exactly.
it just, once we put heavy enough servos on here, and when you turn the servos on, this thing, and it can handle it. And so that's why you get this. And he would look left and right, and then when the werewolves howled, he would tip back, and you see we have this jaw here, so
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
automatic. And so
Yeah.
that was the
But,
so you want
yeah.
lightweight servos, and don't do this where you move
Yeah,
the
it's
center
better
of
to put
gravity.
him
with.
flat.
This just
Yeah,
needed to
it
be
would
up
work better.
under the jaw. So now this way, you can also tell that this is a higher quality servo than we have in there because it's not making much noise.
right.
Yeah, that is.
Well, it's also not bearing any weight right now either, though.
No, that's true, but
It didn't really make noise even with the weight. It
Okay.
would just end up going like this if you didn't have the
yep,
power.
Well,
that's
yeah, that's
true.
the thing, right? Because the
Yeah.
servo has to keep its position
Yeah.
versus the weight. That's what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
comes down to,
yeah.
right?
So this is not much different than it's that, you know, when that scene was going and all that
Yeah.
stuff was going on, you know, it would look left and right, it was fine. So anyway, so that's the end of the talk.
Woo, scares worth sharing. Woo!